Will democracy survive in the next couple of years?
And essentially we are the same.
And there are so many needs that Minnesota has.
What people are saying they need right now.
Access to Democracy is made possible in part by a donation from Firefly Credit Union. Firefly is the new name of U.S. Federal Credit Union, which has proudly served the financial needs of the greater Twin Cities community since 1925. At Firefly, we guide our members forward and give them the power to chase dreams by delivering the financial solutions they need to get ahead. From checking accounts to mortgages, we'll light the way. We are Firefly Credit Union, and this is life illuminated. By Thomson Reuters, providing legal professionals with intelligence, technology, and human expertise they need to find trusted answers. Thomson Reuters, the answer company. Online at thomsonreuters.com. And Dr. Charles Crutchfield of award-winning Crutchfield Dermatology in Eagan. Acknowledged as one of the nation's best physicians, a Minnesota native who trained at the Mayo Clinic, Dr. Crutchfield personally treats all patients and states that experience counts and quality matters. Crutchfield Dermatology, look good, feel great, with beautiful skin.
Welcome back to Access to Democracy. On our last show of 2019, we have a return guest, Commissioner Joe Atkins of Dakota County, and he's going to tell us, because he's been a school board member, a mayor, a legislator, and now a county commissioner, he's going to share with us today what he's running for next.
That's a great question. I just can't hold a job, can I? I realized after seeing all of the, honestly, I just enjoy being part of the community, and I'm up for re-election next year. At this point, I'm thinking I'm probably going to run for re-election as a county commissioner. I enjoy doing it and can get a lot done.
It's been your first term.
First term, yep. I'm still the new kid on the block.
Interesting first term.
Yeah, it certainly has been.
And we have some real topics to talk about, other than the fact that I had 2 coyotes walk through my yard this morning, and I wanted permission to shoot them, and you said I can't do that.
Yeah, I wouldn't. In my other life as a lawyer, I wouldn't recommend doing that, at least not where you live.
Well,
so,
if I shoot them, you may be defending me as a lawyer.
So maybe I should recommend you do it, then I could know.
But yeah, they were big too. I mean, they weren't little skinny little things. They were well fed.
Yeah, we've seen attacks lately on full-size dogs, 90-pound dogs, and that tells me that they're getting pretty bold and aggressive. No natural predators left anymore.
You know, there were times we would leave the dog run free in the backyard and all, and I am loath to do that now. But we have some real problems to talk about. Number one, the tragedy at the Diffley crossing, school crossing, where we lost a 13-year-old who was struck by a car and killed, goes to a situation people have been complaining about for a decade. And of course they want to know, is it the city's fault, the county's fault? What can we do to remedy that Diffley situation? Now, I know you weren't on the county commission during that period of time, but apparently the neighbors have been predicting this for a decade. And it seems only when tragedy strikes, all of a sudden there's a lot of action. So where are we with that? Well,
and I think first, our condolences, my condolences, go to the Vitek family and everybody that knew Patrick and his family. And you're right, I haven't been on the county board very long, but that doesn't mean I don't own this and take responsibility for it. I don't honestly know if any changes would have prevented what happened to Patrick that day. But I do know that that stretch needs to be improved. And I think the complaints, frankly, go back beyond a decade. I know that there were folks talking about Diffley as far back as 2003, 2004. And as recently as the city and county had an open house in February of this year to talk about Braddock and Diffley. And I tell you, Alan, I give the neighbors a ton of credit. The neighbors, parents, folks that go through that area, they showed up at that open house and they said, just dealing with Braddock and Diffley doesn't cut it. It's this whole stretch. I learned a lot at that open house.
Well, there's 3 schools within very close proximity to each other, and Diffley, which is a well-trafficked, traveled, and often speedy road.
Yeah, and no, you're exactly right. And the comments that we heard at that open house in 2019 have led over the last several months. Our staff, working with the city and the school district, was developing some options for longer-term improvements along that whole stretch from Lexington all the way east. And in the intervening time in November 1st, Patrick's accident occurred. And I got to tell you honestly, I don't know if the proposed improvements, because there's a reconstruction going on and all of that, I don't know necessarily that what we're planning and doing would have prevented what happened to Patrick, but I do know that what we're planning and doing is going to make that stretch safer. There's both short-term and long-term. Let's focus on short-term first, which
I've heard things such as a tunnel or an overpass. Of course, a kid on a bike is not going to go up on the overpass, and as Patrick
You know what,
was
though,
doing,
Ellen, we can't look that far out yet. First, we've got to do some things immediately, and that is we're working with the school district. They're going to do crossing guards, adult crossing guards. We're going to install reduced speed school zone signs. Those will go in simultaneously with when the crossing guards are ready to go. There's these speed feedback devices that you've probably seen that as drivers are going, it tells you how fast you're going. And those have been proven highly effective. We've got those ordered as well, but the signs and the crossing guards will be in place by the time the kids get back from winter break in early January. And then the other devices that do the speed feedback should be in and installed sometime in January. The longer term improvements, whether that's a tunnel or an overpass or what's called a road diet or a shrinking of the lanes or a median, we've had we've got a whole array. Traffic lights, crosswalks, we've had 2 open houses now on December 11th and 16th. And thank you, by the way, to everybody that came and offered feedback, because we're going to select some longer term improvements by March 1st. And a credit to people like Jim Carlson, Senator Carlson, Representative Halverson, the city council and school district have all been willing to participate with the county on offering suggestions, but also offering their help with whatever needs to be done on a long-term basis.
And I know there's a lot of jurisdictional questions also as to who has responsibility for it, and is it a city problem, is it a county problem, is it a state problem?
I don't believe in jurisdictional stuff. The buck stops. If you want to, as we move forward, if this doesn't get done, I want people to blame me. If they're looking for somebody to say, you didn't get it done, they can come talk to me. I don't believe in this stuff about, well, they should have done it or they should have done it. Nobody cares what level of government you're from. They just want the problem solved. And so we're getting everybody, school, state, city, county, together, and we're just going to get it done.
And that's always been your attitude as a legislator, though.
Yeah.
You have never shied away from a difficult decision and mixing it up, and sometimes even bringing down, not accolades, but, brickbats on your head. So.
Well, my style irritates some people occasionally, but if it means, Diffley's a great example, if it means getting something done, I don't mind if it irritates a few people. I'm not going to punch you or anything like that, but I did actually threaten to put the signs up myself when there was a delay with getting the school zone speed reductions. I'm like, do you guys really want me out there putting these things in myself? And clearly nobody wants me doing that. Although I have pounded up some lawn signs over the years. I've been doing this election stuff, so I think I could figure out how to put up a sign. But no, folks don't want this. Go talk to him or her at some other level of government. It's just get the job done. One point I want to make, though, is that it's not just here that we're looking. We started before any of this happened. We also have had an effort underway at the county to look at similarly situated schools around. We have 43 schools that lie on county roads across Dakota County, and we're also looking at improvements at all of those schools as well.
Well, that would be good also, to be ahead of the curve, so that
it shouldn't take a tragedy.
That we don't have a tragedy like this again.
Right.
And there've been several really big issues. For instance, we have the state of Arizona, I think it is, who wants our water from Dakota County. Now, what's that all about?
Well, and the first time I heard it, I thought it was a joke. Is that there was an application that was going into the DNR to export, pump, and ship Dakota County's groundwater from Dakota County to Arizona, Colorado, and Utah. And I literally thought, no, this can't possibly. So we checked, and sure enough, they had an application from a railroad company, Progressive Rail, in conjunction with Water Train US, an Oregon-based company.
Now, how do they ship water? Just out of curiosity, not that I want to see it happen.
No, neither do I. By the way, this is the most ludicrous thing I've ever heard in my life, and I'm going to do everything we can to oppose it. But it's apparently technically able to be done. They've got trains that do this. This Oregon-based company is already in the water shipping business, and they've got train cars. Put them on rail, and they send them off to Colorado, Utah, and Arizona. 500 million gallons of water is what they were applying to ship from here to the southwestern states.
Now, I'm not against anybody having water, but we are in a situation where we are growing, and we're continuing to grow. Groundwater is very precious, and 10 years from now, we're going to have a much more difficult situation, making sure that everybody has sufficient water right here in Dakota County without sending it off into the wild blue or on a train.
Well, I can't imagine a more critical resource to Dakota County residents than clean water. I mean, people talk about this is the new oil. Well, oil you can actually live without, maybe not comfortably, but water you can't. And nothing is more important to the future of Dakota County than our groundwater. And to your point, we actually have our own studies. We had a county board meeting in September. We had a report from our staff that we have water quantity issues of our own here in Dakota County, not today, but predicted by over the next decade and a half in places like Eagan and Inver Grove Heights and Apple Valley and across the county. So the last thing we should be doing, or even contemplating, is shipping our water. If they want the snow in my driveway, they can have all of that they want.
If they want to send trucks in here.
Or a flood in the spring, they can grab flood water if they want to, but our groundwater should be sacrosanct.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, and it is a big issue, and it's a very important issue.
We should round out the discussion. The big credit to the DNR. They gave them a quick thumbs down to that application. And Commissioner Stroman and the DNR, thank you very much to the extent that they're watching. But it's our understanding there's already a second application being prepared to pump and ship water from a different location and a different aquifer still within Dakota County. So it's not like this fight is over. And we're going to remain diligent about opposing it as best we can.
Absolutely. That would be a must on the priority list.
I can't imagine a higher priority than saying no to that.
Now, another problem that has cropped up just in the last week, or at least publicized in the last week, is the closing of St. Joe's Hospital.
Hopefully not the closing of St. Joseph, but there's speculation and a good basis for that speculation that the mHealth Fairview Board is considering the closure of St. Joe's Hospital in downtown St. Paul. And the reason that is so important, it's not just for St. Paul. I mean, lots of folks, if you look at the area that is served, and there's actually a map that shows this, it's Eagan, it's Inver Grove, it's Rosemont, it's a big chunk of Dakota County, and a lot of Dakota County residents that have been served by that hospital since 1853. 166 years, East Metro families have been served by St. Joe's Hospital.
Some things are just not sacrosanct, I guess.
I guess sometimes, they've indicated that that it's a net loser in the Fairview system from a financial standpoint. But I would much rather that they reorganize their system in a way that keeps St. Joe's open. We, in fact, the mayors of Eagan, Inver Grove, and Rosemont joined me in a proposal to the St. Joe's Hospital Board that first we urged them to stay open. You've been serving families. We need you. But if the only other option is relocation as opposed to closure, then we'd be happy to help them find a site here in Eagan, Inver Grove, Rosemont.
Eagan doesn't have a hospital.
No, we are actually we are a hospital desert. If you look at where the hospitals are, you got Fairview Ridges down in Burnsville. You've got another one over in Woodbury. But this part of Dakota County, and there's hospitals sprinkled all around the metro except for here.
I know when I fell in February, I went to Fairview Ridges and I had my operation on my femur that was split in half in Fairview Ridges, and we do need more hospital in this area. Now, St. Paul does have a lot of hospitals, but a lot of them are specialized hospitals, whether it's a children's hospital or what. If they were to move it, certainly we could find a place for it.
Yeah. Well, and think about St. Joe's. It's not just about physical health. They also have a mental health treatment. If that doesn't happen at St. Joe's, where does that happen? And what happens if we don't have those sorts of services available? Just contemplate that. And that's why St. Joe's has to stay open. And if not downtown St. Paul, we'll find a spot for them here.
Give them a nice new building, and there'll be a lot of jobs for the building trades to build a nice new hospital. It'll be modern with all the most modern facilities.
Well, and you're way down the path at this point, Alan. I hope that they stay open where they are because they're a great entity. But the number one thing is we don't want them closing, and if that means relocation, we'll find a spot.
Good to hear that. Now let's talk about taxes in Dakota County.
Okay.
We have been traditionally one of the lowest taxed counties in the state of Minnesota, and as a matter of fact, for that matter, in the country in terms of population and taxes. We're coming into a time when there are a lot more demands on government, and in addition to people having to get raises and pensions and other things. Where do we sit for 2020?
Well, you're right. First off is that we do have increasing demands. We're a growing county. We're anticipated to be the second largest county and surpassing Ramsey County over the next decade. And that growing population places greater needs on roads and on the county attorney's office, the county jail, public safety, social services, community service, all the things that the county does, libraries, some parks and trails, all of those things are under greater stress. Now, that being said, we also have the greatest set of employees that you'll ever find any place. We have the lowest ratio of employees per capita per person of any county. I think it's just between us and Carver County. And they work their tails off, and they work really smart, and they do a great job. And that's one of our secrets to keeping the property tax low. Actually, there's two secrets. One is we got great employees. The other one is we have no debt. We are one of a tiny handful. We paid off all the debt about 4 years ago. And as a result, we don't have to pay the interest and the principal on that
Tremendous
debt.
Interest rates, even though interest rates are low now. Just look at the federal government.
Yeah.
Look at
even if the interest rate
in.
was zero, you still got to pay the money back. The average amount of debt in the 7-county metro area on a county basis, over $200 million. So the interest and the principal payment on that is a ton of money every year. We don't have to do that in Dakota County. So we have no debt. We got great employees. We're kind of frugal as a board besides. But as a result of having no debt, instead of taking dollars and putting it towards that, we put it towards the increasing needs of a growing population. A final point, or an additional point, is that we work pretty well with our cities in partnering on road projects, for example, and other projects. So that helps us keep the taxes. By the way, we're not among the lowest. We are the lowest. Of any county in Minnesota, of the 87 counties, we have the lowest property taxes per person of any county, and it's among the lowest across the country. So that's something we like to write home about a little
should
bit.
Certainly boast about it, and very important.
But you still got to deliver the services, and it's not to take anything away from other county governments across But as a result of great employees and no debt and good partnerships with our city partners and school district partners, we're able to deliver pretty good service.
And we've seen Eagan in particular grow intelligently under several administrations, and I always talk about the fact that we have a board, our council, that really has people of differing philosophies, and we've had a longtime mayor now with Mike McGuire, and they bury that in terms of what's best for the city. And it's always been impressive to me that the city comes first, and it has. And as a result, we have now the city center, and we have the Cedarvale area. We have a lot of building and senior citizens buildings going up, and we have the Vikings now. That's all in the city of Eagan.
Yeah.
And yet our commercial and our residential is separated very, very intelligently.
It's one of my favorite things about the local government level. I did the state government stuff for 14 years, and you won't hear me say anything bad about it. I had a very good experience in the Minnesota House. Spent a lot of time, working on bipartisan efforts to get good things done. But it's great at the local level. The politics gets kind of set aside. The partisan stuff all goes to the side, and folks are just figuring out solutions on how best to get things done.
And that's why things get done.
It helps.
We don't
It
have
sure
the
helps.
partisanship that they have, for instance, in the federal government, which is really, really, it's sickening to see what's going on with the federal government now.
No, at the local
And,
level, all across, and I'm not just talking about here, the vast majority of local government officials just are solving problems. They're small business owners like I am. They're used to making payrolls, they're used to solving issues, and it's not about the party stuff, it's just about figuring out how best to get things done. And it's kind of
And yet-
refreshing to see.
And yet with it all, there is homelessness in Dakota County, and probably not enough facilities for the people who, for one reason or another, find themselves homeless, whether it's a tragedy or whether it's business or whether it's jobs or just what it is. There are families who are, well, actually some that have been living in cars, but we need more shelters for these families to help these people get back on their feet.
Well, I'll tell you an interesting piece. More than half of the folks that are experiencing homelessness in Dakota County are working. They've got jobs. And there's sort of this misunderstanding that these are folks that aren't earning a living. They're just, for whatever reason, they're not in a position where they've got a home to go to. And we've, in Dakota County, we've recognized that, yeah, we've got people experiencing homelessness. A credit to, it's not just about the county, it's the faith community, volunteers, matrix services, cities that have done an emergency shelter now across Dakota County from November through April of every year, where we have, on a typical night, we'll have 50 people, sometimes families, sometimes little ones. In fact, we had 4 dogs the other day. I've volunteered a little bit at the shelter and have seen it directly. These are folks that, for whatever reason, are down on their luck a little bit, but in addition to having that emergency shelter, we've also got resources there. So if you've got people that aren't working, we can connect them towards how if we've got folks who are suffering chemical dependency or alcohol issues, we've got people that are on hand, or they just need a vaccination to try to stay healthy and not end up in in the hospital like we were talking about earlier. And hospitalization, emergency room treatment costs as much as 1,000 to 10,000 times what it costs to do preventative care. So those sorts of things are happening. The other thing that Dakota County is doing is so we talked about the prospect of building a permanent shelter. And instead of spending the dollars that way, one of the sort of innovative approaches that we heard about was a supportive permanent housing with support care within the housing itself. So we're building 40 units in Inver Grove at a place called Cahill Place in conjunction with River Heights Community Church that will take in families with children that are experiencing homelessness and give them a permanent place. They've got to pay a percentage of their income. Like I said, many of them are working, But then those kids will have a place that's actually called
Which
home.
is really psychologically so important.
Not
also.
just psychological, but the number one, I learned this recently, the number one factor in whether somebody will experience homelessness is whether their parents experienced homelessness. So if we can break that
That's
cycle,
an interesting statistic. Yeah.
break the cycle, and hopefully you not only have you improved the future of the adult in that family, but those children as well.
Now, what's a PFA chemical?
Well, you're not going to ask me for the chemical breakdown of it,
No,
but PFAS.
I wouldn't you could say anything.
I like
it
to
wouldn't
just
make
call
any
it. Yeah,
difference.
I'll just make it up and I could take a swing at it, but some chemist at home would call and laugh at me. PFAS, you're familiar with the situation that 3M had,
Yeah.
where they've got similar chemicals that have found their way into the ground.
Groundwater pollution.
Right, and credit the state. They're taking a broader look to see where these sorts of businesses have been located over the last several decades. Just so happens, and they're then going to look to see if those chemicals are here as well. They have all sorts of ill health effects for people. So the MPCA is going to take a look at where these industries have been. 200 different industries businesses are going to be looked at to see what sort of impacts they had. Unfortunately, about half are here in Dakota County. And they're not looking to punish the business as much as it is, let's find it if we have a problem, and then meet with those businesses to see how we can remediate it.
Sometimes it's ignorance on the part of the business. Sometimes it's the manufacturers who don't disclose the dangers of what they're selling. So yeah, we don't want to punish the innocent.
Well, and most business owners, like me, I don't intend to harm anybody. I mean, you're trying to do a good business, you're trying to make a living, you're certainly not looking to harm anybody. And so that's the approach that they expect to take.
We only have a minute and a half left, but I understand St. Cloud is looking to privatize their jails with workers. Here, we allow people to work if they're in the jail and earn a little bit of money for themselves. It gives them a little bit of self-respect and helps their own sustenance. Why in the world would you privatize your jail so your inmates can't work?
Yeah, and you know what, I don't know, other counties, yeah, they're thinking about bringing in vendors to do the kitchen work and the laundry work and so forth. And in Dakota County, we find it's not that we make money off of those kitchen workers or laundry workers. It gives them an opportunity to do something. I mean, here you are sitting in jail.
And rehabilitation.
You learn a skill, you're doing something valuable, and that's been our experience, has been a very positive one. We've got folks who are working in the kitchen and the laundry and elsewhere that find it to be a very valuable experience. So why would we not do it?
Commissioner Joe Atkins, always an education, always a pleasure talking to you. And to those of you at home, we can only wish you the best of 2020, good health, good luck, and we'll be with you next year. Thank you.
Thank you.